Hi everybody, it's Ghost Critic here, and I thought I'd better catch up on my reviews of the Ultimate Graphic Novel Collection from Marvel that we're getting over here in the UK. This, as you can already see from the title, is regarding this book, which was Captain Britain, A Crooked World, and this collects Marvel Superheroes 387, 388, The Daredevils issue 1 to 11, and The Mighty World of Marvel volume 2 issue 7 to 13. Now a lot of you are probably thinking, I've never heard of those comic books before, where are they from? And I guess if you are one of my American viewers, you probably don't, because this originally was published under the Marvel UK imprint. It came out in a magazine. It's literally a magazine, very much like if you know 2000 AD, the Judge Dredd magazines. It's like an oversized comic book, and it has maybe 3 or 4 different comic books within it, but they only last so many pages, and there'll be interviews in there, there'll be competitions, and that was definitely the case with those 3 titles that I just mentioned. Coming out in July 1982, this was during Alan Moore's V for Vendetta. That was out at the time, and it came just before the Watchmen series. So it's interesting to see the similarities that are quite prevalent in places to Alan Moore's other works, given that this apparently was Alan Moore's only kind of foray into the Marvel universe. This is the only character he ever wrote for. But getting on to the story, I mean, these, like I said, in these kind of anthology comic books, these storylines only used to last maybe like 5 to 8 pages, and then it'd go on to the next story that was in the magazine, and you'd have to wait. But they came out weekly, so you didn't have to wait that long for you know, the next kind of 5 to 8 pages. So it wasn't like it was a whole comic of Captain Britain. Obviously in the Daredevils, which you'll see when I show you the backup material that this has, and because it's got all the covers on in the back of here, it also had a Daredevil strip in as well. So now getting back to Captain Britain, and this is going to be pretty hard to review. I'm going to miss loads, I know I am, because it is a very, very dense book, not just in narrative, given that these storylines were only 5 to 8 pages long. Alan Moore really had his work cut out for him to kind of keep the story going and interesting within those 5 to 8 pages. So it's crammed with information, and obviously the tone is just so Alan Moore. It could have been straight out of V for Vendetta or straight out of Watchmen. The style and the tone is very Alan Moore, and it's great. I didn't know a lot about Captain Britain to begin with. Obviously the last kind of modern day take we've had on him so far, or that I've seen, is the Uncanny X-Force storyline that's just been called Otherworld. So that was my real first taste of Captain Britain. But this does very well in giving me some information and backup, actually in the story, about, you know, the history of Captain Britain and his changes through his life. The story begins with Captain Britain on Earth 238, and he's battling a kind of, it's not a robot as such, but this entity called the Fury, and the Fury is being controlled by our villain of the piece, which is Mad Jim Jaspers. Now, Mad Jim Jaspers is a mutant who has the ability to kind of change and warp reality to his own making, however he wants, you know, the reality to look. He just uses his mutant ability. And he's got the Fury, this kind of robot, synthonoid, whatever, to kill off superheroes. And the Fury has done incredibly well so far. But we have our band of rebels with Captain Britain and I think it's pronounced Saturnine. I don't know. It's the female character. They're like the last band of rebels who are fighting against the Fury, but they don't do very well. Saturnine realises that they're losing. They're losing really badly, and it doesn't look good. And so she leaves Captain Britain in the lurch and just kind of transports herself away, which leaves Cap against the Fury not doing very well, and basically Cap dies. Captain Britain dies. Not really spoiling that much, given that that's kind of like your opening salvo in this book. What happens from then is this is where kind of Alan Moore goes into the more kind of mysticism, supernatural element of Captain Britain and his associations with Merlin. And what Merlin and his daughter Roma do is bring him back to life, literally, you know, from the ashes of his body. And it's this part of the book which really helped me understand, or at least have a bit more knowledge of the Captain Britain storyline, because as Captain Britain is being made whole again, we get flashbacks to his history and his many kind of appearances throughout Marvel's universe. Once Cap is brought back to life, Merlin puts him back on Earth 616, which is generally known as our universe. It's the true Marvel universe without the whole kind of multiverse going on all around. And he puts him back in Braddock Manor. Now, Braddock Manor is cunningly disguised as a kind of bombed mansion now. There's a kind of an illusion facade over it. Anyone who looks at it just sees this ruined building, but actually if you walk into it, you're actually in a normal, you know, big mansion, and that's where Captain Britain resides. And this is when you get multiple storylines, and it all starts getting not confusing, but it gets a bit overwhelming. Not that any part of the story is enjoyable, but as I said, it's packed to the brim. Just to, you know, briefly go over them, because like I said, I'll probably miss a lot, maybe of your favourite bits, I'm sorry, but we have Saturnine's trial in this kind of intergalactic court for letting the Earth 238 universe be destroyed. We have a kind of side story about Captain Britain's sister, which is Betsy Braddock, and her being a telepath and this mysterious villain who is killing off her fellow telepaths. So she's there getting Captain Britain's help on that. We have the Earth 616 version of Mad Jim Jaspers, who's running for Prime Minister of Great Britain, and eventually he does become Prime Minister, and again he outlaws superhumans, superheroes, and goes around again trying to kill them all. The whole thing ends with a huge kind of battle royale where Cap is fighting Mad Jaspers. Mad Jim Jaspers fights the Fury, who, while he thought he'd killed everyone right at the beginning of the book, because he's kind of sentient, he kind of has, and this is the way he's like a robot, but he has this gut feeling that he hasn't managed to kill all the superheroes, and because he just has that one focus, he will go to any lengths to find them, and this is why he ends up on Earth 616, and he ends up fighting Mad Jim Jaspers, and eventually defeats Jaspers in an absolutely fantastic way, given that Jaspers is a mutant and he can warp reality, and you know, can warp himself into anything he wants to. It really makes for an interesting battle between this single-minded sentient robot, the Fury, and Jasper's kind of omnipotent almost power, and the way that he's eventually defeated is very, very clever, and something probably only Alan Moore could think of. And then of course it's left with the Fury, who is still single-minded, kill all superheroes, but then you have all the different versions of Captain Britain that we saw in Saturnine's court trial, all coming up against the Fury to destroy him. And the kind of finishing blow comes from kind of, not necessarily, well, I suppose it is, it's kind of left the field. It's what we thought was a very minor character in the sense that they seemed to be very much on the outskirts and was very troubled about their persona as a version of Captain Britain. That it made for quite a big surprise at the end. That was just really a brief kind of overview of the story. Like I said, it is jam-packed with just inventiveness, great mature storyline. It's surprised to me that this would possibly have been more aimed at kind of a young teenage market, because there are some huge ideas from Moore in here, and it certainly took me a while to read through it and for it all to really sink in. But at the same time, as the big kind of heavy ideas that Moore puts into all his works, there is not frivolous, but there's the fun comic book element of, you know, the big superhero fights, and the crazy looking creatures, and aliens and superheroes, that it just made this a fun read on all different types of levels. I've never, this could be quite blasphemous me saying this, but I've never actually been a great fan of Alan Davis's artwork. Probably especially in his later works on Marvel. I remember him being on, I can't remember if it was X-Men or if it was Uncanny X-Men, and I just really didn't like it. But the artwork in here, maybe it's just his earlier work, his 80s work, it's not rougher style, but not as... Thank you, shush. Maybe it's just his earlier work when he's developing his skills that I appreciated more. But when you look at it, you can see that this is a very 80s feel of a comic book. But there is just a ton of ideas in here. The imaginative paneling, the artwork, as I said, it just made it a really great fun read, and I thoroughly enjoyed this and would go back to it again and again. In the back we have, let's have a look. Yeah, we got the, hopefully you can see that without too much glare. We've got a 2-page Captain Britain origin, so if you didn't quite understand it from the flashback in the actual book, then you can read about it in the back. We have a kind of 3-page kind of synopsis, I guess, about Alan Moore's work. And then, as I said about these comic books, these are the covers. No, please get rid of that glare. Right, hopefully you can see that quite well. These are the covers to the Daredevil's issues, and hopefully, if you can see it, you'll see there's not just Captain Britain on there. You've got Daredevil on the front, and also you can see at the side there's like competitions and there's interviews. What else was in these? So you've got Daredevil Till Death Do Us Part storyline, Night Raven, the Snow Queen, there's a science fiction strip called Black Sun Rising, and see they've got special features on Japanese comics. There, it was like a proper kind of magazine, very British, very kind of 80s. And then we have artwork gallery. You probably can't see these at all. And then, as usual, on the back there's the further reading, and we find out there's some of the volumes that are to come. So Captain Britain is going to get another look in. Captain Britain and MI13 Vampire State is going to be one of the books coming out, which is good because I remember that coming out, but I didn't pick that up. So, and I heard it was really, really good. So I'll look forward to seeing that. Also, finally, I was wondering when they were going to do one, but we finally have a Fantastic Four story. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be one of those The End titles. It's Fantastic Four The End. Remember when Marvel was putting out the very last story of all their characters? I think they did one for the Punisher, they did one for the X-Men. They weren't very good. I'm quite disappointed that that's what they've chosen for Fantastic Four. I hope they've got some more classic Fantastic Four stories to come. So, yep, that's Captain Britain. Done and dusted. Hopefully I'll be able to film soon the Avengers Forever, and I think there's this week's coming out another Spider-Man collected work. Obviously with the Spider-Man movie coming out, they want to throw as many of those out as possible. Anyway, that's me out. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've read the Crooked World storyline before and what you thought of it, which were your favourite bits. Sorry it was a bit condensed, but there was a lot of stuff in it. Anyway, till next time, goodbye.